Oops.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another social emotional workshop. We are with CARE of Southeastern Michigan, and today we're going to be talking to your children, your students, your family about addiction. Teresa, welcome back. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, well, this actually, we call this the family sculpt because it really discusses how children deal with family stressors. So just to make it easier, we use addiction, but this can be anything. And so then I added a couple slides in here about how to talk to different age groups about it. And so when I am talking to groups, especially teenagers, I do this for teenagers. And I tell them that, all families have dysfunction in it. Probably about, I think I read one time that 85% of families had addiction. And so it's not that uncommon. And people who have dysfunction in their family, especially children, they're not really sure how to deal with it. And it feels like their life is out of control. Like if you're talking about addiction or any kind of family stressor, kids don't understand what's going on. They feel confused. And so they take on a role. It's a coping skill. And we're going to be going over these roles. And even though they may seem like odd, strange, why would a child take on this kind of a role? It may seem strange to us, but to them, it gives them a sense of power and control that they feel they don't have. So when we talk to the kids, when we had that summer camp in July, and we talked to the children who have loved ones who are dealing with addiction, we tell them when we talk about this, that this is not good or bad. It's not what this is about. It's just a coping skill. And we're actually going to be going over what those coping skills turn into, what they look like when these young people, these children turn into adults. So we're not talking good or bad here. We're just talking, what it is. And so when I'm talking to the kids, I tell them that a family stressor can be anything. It doesn't have to be addiction. It could be something relatively harmless, like a new baby in the family or a new school. But it also could be, bigger things like food scarcity or unemployment, or one of your family members is incarcerated, or domestic violence or addiction. Those are all stressors. And so I can't read this bottom thing here. Hold on. There. One parent leaving and starting another family. That's a huge stressor, whether it's divorce or separation. That can be a huge stressor. So this I put in for the kids too. You can't really tell. It doesn't always feel like what you think it's going to feel like having a family stressor. It can be really oppressive or violent. It can be manipulative or loud and scary, or it could also be very quiet to where it seems strange because you remember when you were in bed last night, you heard yelling and screaming and loud noises. And now this morning, everybody acts like nothing's going on. And that eeriness can be scary too. You can feel fearful or anxious or shameful, or even trying to get rid of that ribbon on the bottom, and I keep seeing it. Oh my goodness. Or even, normal, because you've always lived this way. So sometimes it's hard to figure out what a stressor is. And, if you're not sure, you can talk to somebody. And I always tell them at the end, I give them some resources. Who can you talk to if you feel any of these things? Or if you're just not sure, what's going on. Is my family having a stressor? It seems like it is. So we'll get to that later, though. And so, like I said, we're going to use addiction for this particular family stressor. And when I saw this picture, I liked it because to me, that just typifies what an addicted person looks like. The water's not quite covering his mouth and his nose, so he's not worried yet. He can still breathe, and there's somebody reaching out to help him. So right now, he doesn't see it as a problem, but if that helping hand moved away, then he might start to get the water over his mouth or close to his nose, and then he's going to panic. And so, having an addiction feels scary, but you might not always realize it. I like the kids to understand that too. And we talk a little bit about addiction, how it changes your brain. And so the addicted person may be thinking to themselves or even saying, it's not my fault. I'm not going to feel about this. I'm doing fine. I need to relieve stress. That's what my brother used to tell me, that, he had marijuana and heroin in case, he needed to relieve stress and he couldn't function very well without it. I can handle things better if I use. And I can stop whenever I want. I can stop tomorrow if I want to, or next week or next Monday. That's always what you'll hear from them, but they never quite follow through on that idea of stopping. And also, they don't want to think or feel about what's going on because, they feel shame already because they feel out of control. Their brain is different now. It's been changed and they have that addiction, and it's hard for them to feel good about themselves. And then there's the chief enabler. So the chief enabler, I like this picture too, because the chief enabler is doing for someone what they should be doing for themselves, which is totally different than helping someone. And so we used to tell my parents all the time, they both were the chief enablers for my brother. And my dad even went so far as to give my brother money and drive him down to the place where he bought his drugs and wait for him to come out. And, he and I had a big argument about it, me and my dad. But now I understand that my dad was only doing what he felt he could do to keep his boy safe. Even though he wasn't a boy, to my dad, he's always his baby. He didn't know what else to do. This was back in the late 70s and the 80s. My dad, we didn't even know about CARE at that time. And so my parents were always calling in for my brother. They were always cleaning up any mess that he had. If he didn't pay his rent, they would pay it for him. If he sold his car, they'd buy him another one. If he came in the house and stole everything, they would just replace it. So it was really hard for them. And it was difficult to watch going on. But that's the way a chief enabler is. Their life revolves around that addicted person and their behavior. And they try to keep their life together because it wasn't something that my parents wanted to think about. If they didn't do this, what would happen? My brother got beat up by his drug pusher and some of his friends, I guess, his associates. And he was in the hospital for months. And he had a closed head injury the rest of his life. And they broke every bone in his face. So he didn't even look like himself anymore. So I think that was part of what my parents were trying to stop, to keep him safe. So they lied and they made excuses for him. And I think I shared with you guys that my brother, he held up a liquor store at one point. And at that point, when it got into the newspapers, my parents, or really my mother, who was really involved in her church, she did the altar society. She cooked meals when they had big occasions. She helped out at the school. Everything just stopped. Even her friends tried to call her and she would not talk to them. So, she's a child of an alcoholic herself. And so that's what um, a child of an alcoholic will do. I don't want to think about it, and I don't want to talk about it, and I don't want to feel about it. So I'm just going to shut down. And so all of the things that she enjoyed in her life were just gone because she was, taking care of my brother. Often enablers will be inconsistent with their parenting their children. And on the inside, they are so out of control. And so this is the one thing, like I said, that my parents could do to have some control in the situation. This is the only thing they could do to help my brother. And so that's what they did. We often asked them to go for help and they wouldn't do it because that generation doesn't always believe, in getting help. So we're going to get into the kids' roles now. These are the roles that children take on to deal with what's going on in their family. So usually the hero child is the oldest one in the family. It doesn't have to be, though. In my mother's case, because there was 10 kids, her and her two other oldest sisters were the hero children. What they are is a source of pride for the family. So, our family's not dysfunctional because here we got this great kid, who, is like a hero. They get good grades. They're on top of everything. They're attractive children. They're successful, whatever they do, school, after school, jobs, friends, they have tons of achievements. And that kind of lacks up for any parental nurturing that they're not getting, support from their parents and attention from their parents. And so in their mind, they're thinking, I'm going to take care of everything and everyone in the family. And I'm going to make everyone happy, big people pleasers. And I'm not going to do anything to upset the family. And so I'm going to get straight A's. I can't get anything below a straight A's. And I have to have a job after work to help make money or so that I don't have to ask my parents for money. And I have to be the captain of this and the captain of that. And the president of this club. I can't be anything less. And so it's very hard for their kids, but they feel that it helps them stay in control of their life. And, when my sister was 20 and she left the house to get married, I tried to be the hero child, not knowing what it was. I just tried to do things right, but it didn't work for me. I didn't like all that attention. And, I wasn't a rocket scientist either, so I didn't get that good of grades. And so, it was too uncomfortable and awkward for me. So I didn't do it anymore. But kids can. If they feel comfortable, they may take on other roles than just the one that they have. The next one is the scapegoat. And what this child represents to the family is they take the attention off of the person with the addiction. So they're a distraction for the family. So the family can say, hey, if this family is in trouble, it's because of this scapegoat, not because of the person who's addicted. And so in my family, it was my sister, Tony. She got pregnant when she was 16, which was 1970. So in an Italian Catholic family, that's huge in 1970, and my mom and dad kicked her out of the house. She had nowhere to go. My sister's 67 right now, and she still holds on to that anger. But what I tried to explain to her once is that my mom was the hero child. She understood how to handle addiction. She could hide it so that nobody could see it because she learned that from her mother. But she did not know how to handle a 16-year-old child who was pregnant. She wouldn't be able to hide that. So I know that doesn't excuse that behavior. It was still horrible to have a baby out on the street with carrying a baby, but my mom, in her defense, didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to handle that. So even though this scapegoat is getting in trouble, maybe with the police, maybe at school, with the parents, juvenile justice center, they feel that they've got some control. Even though my family's out of control, I can have control here. And so on the inside, they think, I don't need anyone. You guys can't hurt me. I'm like a big scar tissue. I don't feel anything. You can't hurt me. And I'm not even going to spend time with my family. I trust my friends, not my family. And so they're very angry and hostile and defiant, and they seem like they don't care. And they won't take responsibility for anything, not their actions, not their family, nothing. They rely on their friends and they withdraw from their family a lot. And so that's how they feel like they're going to deal with what's going on in this family. The last one is the lost child, and they're kind of a relief. This is not the last one, I'm sorry. Usually it's the baby of the family that's the lost child, though. What they represent is relief, one less person to have to worry about. And in my family, this was me, because I didn't want to be around all that yelling and screaming and fighting. I just wanted to go in my room with my dogs, my cats, whatever I picked up off the street, birds, lost kittens, my books, and I wanted to hide from everybody. I don't want to be seen or heard. And I didn't really do this, but some lost children may think if I'm sick, my family will rally around me. So they might look for attention that way. But I was a loner, and I was withdrawn and private and detached and shy. So that fits me to a T. And I'm still kind of that way. I'm an introvert. I like to stay home with my dogs and my books, and that suits me fine. So that's where I learned it, though, being a kid and staying in my room and staying away from all that arguing, pretending like it wasn't really happening, kind of living in a fantasy world, thinking that somebody from the Brady Bunch was going to come and take me and tell me that I'm in the wrong family. I didn't deserve to be in this family. So that helps them feel more in control. And then this is the last one, the mascot. So what they represent to the family is comic relief, fun, and humor. So strangely or oddly enough, this was also my sister, the one that got pregnant. She, to this day, is a big clown in our family. She makes everybody laugh. If people laugh at me, it means that they like me. They get their approval because they're probably not getting a lot of parental nurturing and approval from their parents. I have to keep moving so that, people will notice me. And so a lot of times they look like they're bouncing off the walls, and they get medicated as if they have ADHD, but they don't really. They're just always on the move, being goofy, running around. And they're seldom taken seriously. They'll do anything to get attention. They're big show-offs. So for the family, it's a sense of relief. We can laugh with them and not think about all the problems that we're having. So those are the roles that the kids take on, because on the inside, they all feel the same way: lonely, inadequate, and insecure. They feel confused, like, why is this happening? And are any other families going through this? They think that it's not true, that it's just their family. They also feel guilty because kids will, whether they're teenagers or school age or young, they will think that it's their fault somehow. Even though, how could a kid put addiction and, my fault, me as a 5 or 6 year old, how would they put that together? But they don't know what's going on. And so they think it's their fault. When I was little, when my sister, she was 7 years older than me. She is 7 years older. So I was 9. And she just disappeared one day. Nobody would tell me where she was. Nobody would tell me that she was pregnant. I couldn't figure it out. What the heck happened to my sister? And same thing with my brother. When he would go to juvenile justice center, or when he would get in trouble, I would hear yelling and screaming at night. And then I was one of those kids that woke up the next morning and it's quiet. So I made stuff up in my head, why that could be going on, and made up all kinds of weird stories involving me, like it's my fault, because these kids don't know what's going on. And so when my parents were, dealing with all that, I felt rejected and hurt. and afraid about what's going to happen next. So finally, one of my sisters, the hero child, of course, sat me down and said, look, this is what's going on. And even when I was 9 years old, I was so relieved, like, okay, I get it now. I didn't do anything wrong. Everything's going to be okay. Hopefully, that's what they told me anyway. So, all these kids can't deal with these inner feelings. And so they do the best thing that they can, which is take on those roles. So that's one of the things that we deal with in this Camp CARE. When we sit down with these kids, this Camp CARE is a free camp that we have every summer. At the end of July or the beginning of August, it's free. And it's for kids preschool to 8th grade. When I was doing it, it was preschool to high school. But we can't get the teenagers to come like they did before, which is really sad. A lot of times, the first thing we do when we get these kids in the group is we'll sit down. We have circle time, every time when we start the class or the group. And we ask them, why do you think you're here? And a lot of kids don't know. Their parents didn't tell them. They just bring them there. And so we tell them, well, the people that are here all have someone in their family that they love that is struggling with addiction. And you could just almost see the relief on their face. I was scared to bring that up the very first time I did group, that group 20-something years ago. I didn't know how the kids were going to react to that. Some kids are angry. They feel cheated or lied to, and cheated. They thought they were going to go to a fun camp. But a lot of times they start to feel relieved because it dawns on them that other families actually do have these problems like they do. And so we, talk to them about getting their feelings out and that it's not your fault. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that you could have done that would have caused the person you love to start using drugs. So we have a day where we talk about addiction, what it means, what happens, why do people act that way? We have a day where we talk about family addiction. What does it mean if you have a lot of people in your family or even one person in your family who has an addiction? We talk to them about these roles that they take on. And by the end of that 2 weeks, those kids, they want to come back next year because it just feels so good to talk to other people in their age group about how they feel and what happens in their family and that they're not alone. One of the things that we talk about, not one of the things, but this is the major thing that we talked about, the 7 C's. What we tell them is you didn't cause it and you can't control it and you can't cure it. So it doesn't matter if you take the vodka and spill it out into the sink. It doesn't matter if you take the cigarettes and tear them up and throw them away in the garbage. It's not going to change anything. But nothing that you could have done would have caused this to happen. It's the grown-up or the person who has the addiction that has to take care of it. But you can take care of yourself by communicating your feelings, making healthy choices and celebrating yourself, because they need to do that because they feel that guilt, that rejection, that shame. So they need to be able to find ways to celebrate themselves. And I think that's what's part of what brings them back every year also is the fact that they just feel so good when they get there because they realize they're okay and they're normal and that they can take care of themselves. And so what do you tell them? Well, with toddlers, it's going to be short and sweet, but it's concrete information as much as you can. I always tell, I go to this rehab center in Richmond, Michigan, and it's called, it's part of Sacred Heart. It's called Clearview. And the women who are in the Clearview section can bring their children there if they have small children. And so I tell them, there's books at the library that you can get out that can help you explain a little bit, but, tell them that you're sick, that you have a disease, and that you're working on trying to get better. And then engage them in something fun to do, something that they usually do. Even if it's just sitting on your lap for a while and resting or going and laying on their bed or playing with the toy or going outside, whatever. But a lot of times people don't know how to soothe themselves after they have a talk that's upsetting or an event that is upsetting. And so they don't know what to do with themselves, and they grow up reaching for the wrong way to soothe themselves, like with food or gambling or drugs or smoking, something to calm them down because they don't know how to calm themselves down. So any age, whether it's toddler, school age, or teen, after we have these talks, engage them in something fun that they can do to feel better. School age, like 5 to 12, they can handle more info because they've already started getting information about drugs in school. And so be as honest as you can within reason. I'll tell those ladies at Clearview, listen, you can tell them that you have an addiction to drugs and that sometimes it affects your judgment or your mood, but you don't have to tell them everything. When my kids saw my brother get arrested, they wanted to know what he did. And I said, it doesn't really matter right now what he did. What matters is that the police found out, they arrested him, and he's going to make amends for what he did wrong. And then they didn't want to talk about it anymore. So they wanted to think about that. Okay, I'm going to leave him alone. My son came to me one time and he said, after he saw my brother get arrested, he said, I hate Uncle Johnny. And so all I did was validate. So it sounds like you're really angry at Uncle Johnny. And he said, yeah, he made Nunny and Poppy cry. So you feel sad. That's why you feel so angry right now, because you're sad that you saw your grandparents cry. And then he didn't want to talk about it anymore either. Or he may have asked one other question. What's wrong with him? Why did he do that? What did he do? Where's he going? Something like that. But once I noticed that resistance, I didn't push it. I just let it go, because they have to sit with it for a while and think about it. Then when we got home, I tried to do something to make him feel better, which was sitting on, probably sitting on the chair and rocking him because he was crying, he was upset. And then when they get to be, 12 and above, they can handle more information and they have a lot of questions. That's why I feel sad that those teenagers aren't coming, to camp anymore. They need to talk about their thoughts and their feelings just so they can process them, peel that onion apart. How do I feel about it? What do I think about it? All those things that families with addiction are told not to do. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. Don't feel about it. Well, they want to. And they worry, how teenagers are. They worry about what other people are going to think of them if they know about their family. So they need to talk about it a lot. They need to process what's in their head. They need to be angry if they want to be angry. That's what I tell those women at Clearview, because sometimes their kids won't talk to them. And I just tell them you love them and you'll talk to them later. That's it. That's all you got to do. And give them time. Just always be there to listen to them and be honest. Give them as much information as you can that you feel comfortable giving them, and then stop and let them, ingest it, let them process it, mull it over. And then they can come back and talk to you later if they want to. So then, what do I tell them? And I tell them the truth. Explain to them that drugs affect a person's behavior, mood, and judgment. And they might do things that they wouldn't normally do if they weren't using. That's okay to tell them. It's okay to tell them that, I experimented when I was young and I got addicted. Doesn't make me a bad person. It just makes me a person who has an addiction and needs some help. And we also have to reassure them many, many times, not just once, that no matter what they did not cause this problem. It's the responsibility of the person who has the addiction to take care of the substance use problem themselves. The kid, the child, the teenager does not have to do anything. And then again, encourage them to continue with whatever they usually do that they're interested in or that they have fun with. And one of the best things that you can do is help them to identify a person that an adult, an older cousin, family member, somebody that they can contact if they need to talk or if they feel unsafe. And so help them figure out, if they're younger, what do you mean by trusting somebody? Well, somebody that you can talk to, who will listen to you, somebody who will not share your secrets, who will keep the secret, who won't tell you what to do, but will just listen. Or if you feel unsafe, they'll come and get you if you need them to. And then tell that person, hey, I gave my kid your phone numbers. They might call you if they need to talk, or if they don't feel safe. Are you willing to do that? Yes or no? And I tell these moms, don't take it personally if they don't want to talk to you. When I was going through my divorce, and I thought my kids might want to talk to somebody besides me. And my daughter had a teacher that she really liked a lot. And so I wrote him a letter. The same thing with when my brother died and my sister died. I didn't know who my kids wanted to talk to, whether it was me or somebody else. I just wanted them to have an option. So I wrote to their teachers because I knew them, I trusted them, I spent time in that classroom. And I said, can Luke or Leah, whoever the teacher was, can they talk to you, after school, during lunch, if they need to, if they don't, if they need someone to talk. And they said they did. And then one day my daughter came and said, right after the divorce, she said, I need somebody else to talk to besides you and Dad. I don't feel comfortable saying what I want to say about you. So I called CARE and I said, hey, I have a 15-year-old who would like to talk to somebody, get some counseling. So I got her somebody and she only went like 3 or 4 times, but it helped her to sort out her feelings without embarrassing herself by talking to her parents. So we also talked to the kids in camp, and I talked to my kids about that particular subject, intervention. What does it mean? For my daughter, it was getting counseling. Could be self-help books. That's what I did. I wanted to learn about addiction. Could be support groups. We tried to get my parents to go. They would not go to Families Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. They wouldn't do it. Faith-based support groups like, what's that one? Well, I guess Al-Anon would be a faith-based, if you want it to be, where you believe in a higher power. Treatment centers, and just getting education, just learning what drugs can do to your brain and how it changes your judgment and your mood was so helpful for me. My sisters wouldn't listen to that. When I learned about it, I tried to bring that information home to them and explain to them, because they saw my brother's drug addiction as a weakness. If he had some backbone, if he'd pull himself together, if he had a girlfriend who was halfway decent, that type of thing. And I'm like, no, you guys, it's brain changes. And they, it's not the same person that you knew when he was a little boy or before he got involved with drugs. They didn't want to hear that. And so they didn't want to hear that he had bipolar. He was diagnosed with bipolar, which happens to a lot of people with a substance use problem. And so they want to hear that either. But education helped me to understand myself and my children had a relationship with him until he died. My sisters didn't. They still can't talk about him. They get so angry. And when you try to talk about these roles, they don't hear that either. It's too much. They can't handle it. So, I can only control what I think and feel and do. So I always suggest it, but they don't want it. So what I try to tell the kids is, the hero child, if they don't get some kind of intervention, they may end up being a workaholic. They're very rigid in their thought process, and they're responsible for everyone. This is exactly my oldest sister. And they have a lot of stress-related illnesses, like backache, muscle aches, headaches, clenching their jaw, stomach aches, all those things, because they're not working through those problems. My mom had every single one of those things too, that perfection very rigid about, we have to look like a perfect family. We go to church, every Sunday. We're involved in our church. Nobody hears about what's going on in this family. Really rigid about that. And so, it's hard for that hero child to grow up without some kind of intervention. But with intervention, it could be different for them. With intervention, they can learn to accept their mistakes. They can be flexible, responsible for themselves and not everyone else. And very good executives, because they like to take charge. They like to organize and keep things running smoothly. And so Mr. Obama did not have drug addiction in his family history, but his dad wasn't around. His dad left when he was about 3 years old. He only saw him one more time in his entire life, I think when he was like 21 or something, and never saw him again. So abandonment is a family stressor. His mom had to move around a lot, to find, get work or whatever was her reason for needing to move. That's a family stressor. And also racism, constant family stressor for him. Well, his family, his mom was white, his dad was black, but even though, he just had racism to deal with. And so as a child growing up with that, he became the hero child. I think he was the only child in his family, but, with intervention, which he's talked about many times, it can help him be a successful, good leader, that type of thing. Those scapegoats, without intervention, they may have unplanned pregnancies, early substance use. Usually that's typically what they're in trouble for when they're younger. They become troublemakers in school and later on in their workplace. They may end up in prison or unemployed. And so with intervention, they can learn to accept responsibility. They have the ability to see reality, and that's what makes them good counselors, whether it's in high school or, just professional counselors. They know where these people are at that they're trying to help. They're also very courageous. They've been through a lot of really tough stuff, like Mary J. Blige. She had a really, really rough childhood. Her father was a veteran and he had PTSD. I'm not making excuses for him, but he, used to beat her mother, Mary J. Blige's mother, and Mary J. a lot. And so the mom moved her out of the house and into public housing, thinking that she was, helping her, she's not going to get beat every day. But then as a child, Mary J. saw and heard other women being abused. And so, that's trauma for a child too. She was also sexually assaulted as a child. And when she was a young woman, I know she had like brief intervention because she had her church, and that's where she learned how to sing. But, she also had at that time a substance use disorder, so rough life. But she has talked about getting help and having, people help her, and she's asking for help. And so she's made a difference in her life and become this famous woman with this beautiful voice. But, she had a really hard start in life. So with intervention, and I hate to just use always celebrities, but, when I'm talking to the kids in the high school, it helps them to identify, and it helps them to feel better. I feel like it might, because they know who these people are. It helps them to feel better. So the lost child, without any kind of intervention, they can feel depressed, sad, and lonely. They're often obese because they're spending a lot of time alone. They're also promiscuous because they want to make those connections with another person, but they don't know how because they spend so much time alone. They're not making connections with their mother and their father. They're not watching them do it. And so because they're so detached from their family, they don't know how to do that. And so, having one night stands is a brief way to have some connection with another human being. And then I don't have to deal with it anymore. I can move on and then be alone again and not have to deal with that because I don't know how. It hurts too much. So with some intervention, they can be very independent. Well, they are. They're independent anyway, but they learn how to be, creative and imaginative and talented and self-actualized. They know what their problems are and how to deal with them. So the stressor in Steven Spielberg's house was that he was bullied as a kid. And also his parents went through a divorce. And, I think that he had a lot of problems because he's Jewish. So he got a lot of probably anger and bullying from his friends. So those are all stressors. But he does talk about being a lot, he doesn't say lost child, but he talks about spending a lot of time alone when he was a kid. And, that develops their imagination and their creativity. And so when he got some intervention, when he got help, he used those tools to become who he is today. I can't say that I'm talented and creative and imaginative, but, I'm just glad I got some intervention and realized that it's okay to want to be alone and not to always be around other people. That doesn't mean I'm strange or odd. Well, I am strange and odd, but, when you're a young kid, you think that you're different and weird. And now I can see that, a lot of people are introverts. And the mascot, without intervention, they have a lot of those stress-related illnesses because they don't know how to handle them. And so they get a lot of ulcers. And they're compulsive clowns, which can be really irritating and annoying. A lot of times they marry a hero child so that, they have somebody to take care of them. And that hero child, that's what they do. They take care of people. So it fits right in with what they do. And they remain immature. But with intervention, they learn to take care of themselves. They're no longer the clown. They just have a really good sense of humor and they're fun to be with. So Jim Carrey, when he was a kid, his family was homeless for a while. And they lived in their car actually for a while. And he felt the stress in his family. And he wanted to relieve that for his dad. So he was, big funny clown. You know how he is with his face, making all those faces. And he had said before that if he saw his dad smile, then he knew he was doing a good job. He did his job for the day. So I made my dad cheer up a little bit. And so he often talks about he reads a lot of self-help books like Mr. Obama does. And he gets counseling. And sometimes when I'm in the high school, I used to use the image of Eminem, Marshall Mathers. I used to use him for the scapegoat because, he was in a lot of trouble when he was a teenager. His mom had an addiction. And Jim Carrey. And the kids always tell me, yeah, well, Eminem did this and he did that. And, Jim Carrey had a big meltdown one time and caused a lot of problems on a movie set. I said, you know what, though? That's what happens. You just because you get intervention doesn't mean that you don't carry that baggage around with you all your life. You just learn how to deal with it better. You can look at it more clearly. But sometimes people relapse, just like people who are in recovery relapse. It's part of getting back into recovery and staying there. And so that's exactly what, I don't know about Eminem, but I do know that Jim Carrey talked about that emotional breakdown that he had, and it got him right back into counseling again, and he feels better about it. And so that's what recovery is all about, whether you're dealing with what happened to your family or whether you're dealing with your substance use issue. So, I like to leave the kids in the school with some help. And even the adults that I talk to, where can you get help? Well, you can call CARE. If you don't live in our county, we can give you information about maybe Wayne County mental health or CASE in Oakland County. But we can refer you there if you need to. But if you're in Macomb County, we have, we can help you with counseling. You would have to go to the health department or to Macomb County Office of Substance Abuse to get an assessment. We used to do that, but they can tell you how to get help too, and we would refer you there. School counselors are great. Religious leaders, Alcoholics Anonymous or Alateen. They do have a support group for young kids. I think as young as 9 years old, 10 years old, they'll take them. And the curriculum that we used to teach for the summer camp came from Maple Grove, which was created by Jerry Moe, and his father was an alcoholic. And, that's where he went to find some support. He said, I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have Alateen. So just talking about it with a trusted adult in a support group, in counseling with a teacher or a counselor can really help a lot. But what we need to really stress to them over and over again, not just once, is that it's not their fault. They didn't cause it. I used to run an 8-week group for kids who were going through divorce. Their parents were going through divorce. And we used to use the 7 C's with them too. And we would do, pre and post tests. And even after 8 weeks, I know that's not a long time, but we did a lot of group work. We talked a lot with the kids and did activities to help them understand, like we do in group and or at the camp. And still after 8 weeks, they would still answer that question. Do you think it's your fault that your parents are getting divorced? And some of them still felt like they were, or they'd leave a question mark. I don't know. So, they need to have it repeated all the time. They need to understand it's not their fault. And they can't cure it. And they didn't cause it. So, I think I finished kind of early. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's like 1:45. But do you guys have any thoughts about that? Any questions that I can help with? Anything that brought up, or anything that you can use with the people that you work with? Or have you seen, any of these roles taking place in your classrooms where you could say, yep, I see it in that young person?
You guys can either type your question or comment in the chat or raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can verbalize your questions and or thoughts.
I didn't really go through, what you tell them. I just kind of gave you a brief idea what to tell them, but really just listening to these kids and helping them to understand that it's okay, whatever they feel, whether it's anger, whether it's hate, whether it's confusion or guilt, it's okay for you to feel that way. And let's talk about why you might feel that way. Just listening to them and validating what they're saying is really helpful for them.
Teresa, are you looking at the chat or you want me to read it to you?
No, I'm going to look at it here. Why some of our students have those characteristics. Oh, and it was, yeah. I can see it with my family, and I bet you guys can see it with your some of the kids that are in there. It starts to make sense. It's really easy to get frustrated and angry. One of the things that we noticed with the kids, our camps are 2 weeks long, so Monday through Friday, and then Monday through Friday the next week, or actually Thursday. I think it used to be Monday through Thursday. And then when they would come back on Monday, they would, by Friday or Thursday of the first week, they would be so relaxed and happy and, opening up and talking about how they feel and what they think. And then Monday would roll around, that second Monday, and they would be out of control and withdrawn again and combative and, not wanting to talk to us, and or acting up really bad. And we would get so frustrated. And in our debriefing, we would debrief every day, and we realized that they, Monday through Thursday, they went through this calm, routine, structured environment where they could talk and nobody would judge them or be mad at them. And then they went home on the weekend. And whatever happened on the weekend, whether it was being told that they can't talk about things, or if somebody was using, or there was some kind of violence in the house, it just started all over for them again. And it was really frustrating to deal with those characteristics that you see. But it was even more important for us to be calm and do this very same exact thing that we did the week before, and help them to feel that it's okay, and show support to them, and validate, because that's what makes them feel more calm. And we would be, at the end of the day, we'd be like tearing our hair out, and that debriefing was so important, to hear what everybody else is feeling and to talk about that. And then you might even hear the people who are running the parent groups, because we have a parent group that runs at the same time. And they would say, well, mom revealed this today, or dad said this today about what's going on in the family over the weekend. Okay, well, that makes sense, And we don't talk about what the kids say to the parents and vice versa. Everybody's, even the children, small ones, everything they say is kept confidential. And we don't talk to the parents. If they ask, we don't tell them. And if they ask, when we're in the parent group, we tell them, unless your children want to tell you what's going on, please don't ask. Let them have this space, to be comfortable with. So yeah, I bet you guys do see that a lot. So just talking and validating can help them a lot. And they can call CARE, get some resources.
Good deal. Anybody else want to share?
Well, thanks, you guys. If you do happen to think of something, you can contact me or Joe, or you can email us. Tony has our email address at CARE. Sometimes you hear this and you don't think of a question until the next day or later tonight when you're not thinking about it. Come back tomorrow and tell Tony to send that you need my address, or Joe's. It will help you out with whatever we can.
Good deal. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Teresa, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
We're going to be doing discipline next week, right?
Yeah.
Good
Thank
deal.
you.
All right. Well, everybody have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.